Damn. Hold on. Now, did my mic disconnect? It did. Wow. And then it goes to my camera's microphone. It's very, very frustrating. It just does not want to work, does it? At all. Let's see. Okay. Now you guys can hear me. There we go. We got it. We got it figured out. All right. So Zag and Zag and Clown are going to be on here in a little bit, 15 minutes or so. They're doing some stuff. They just got delayed. And then I don't know if Alex is going to make it. It's pretty early where he's at. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But cheers, everybody. Let's if you guys have some questions, we can go ahead and start. You guys can start asking questions. We can start throwing up topics. I'll talk about stuff. Whatever, man. I'm all about it. I'm going to be drinking for right now Sprite and coconut rum. It tastes so good. It's awesome. It's so good. Dude, this guy right here, what is this question? Come on, bruh. Come on, bruh. You know them Chiefs are going to win. You know my Chiefs are going to win. Let's go. Come on, bruh. The Chiefs are going to win. Rum is not gay, okay? Rum is rum gay, guys? Can you ask Vaughn to tell everyone the story of what he was doing on 9/11? How old was he? Because I'm of the generation where I barely remember 9/11. Like I was a little kid when 9/11 happened. If I can even remember it. Sometimes it kind of feels like a implanted memory almost. It was so that I was so young when that happened. Let's see. All right. So I'll just go over some stuff that's happening in the Ukraine war right now. Oh, here we have Clown. So I'll add Clown to the stage. But I will also go over here and do this. How are you doing, Clown?
I am all right. How are you, Scott?
I'm awesome, dude. It's a good day today.
It is. I got my Bitburger. I'm good to go.
Awesome. What are you drinking? What'd you say?
Bitburger.
Oh, awesome. So just to give everybody some updates here, the Russians have progressed almost into the train station around Avdiivka. So, we have reports that there's fighting in the train station. I have put it just as the Russians just sort of entering this corner because the last update that we had was something like this. But basically, what it looks like right now on most maps is this entire area right here is gray zone. And there are reports that the Russians are actually operating on this industrial prospect highway right here that goes down to the 9th district. And this was the last actual paved supply route into Avdiivka. They still have this small dirt road right here, but it is very close to Russian positions. It's been raining the last couple of days. This road is an absolute disaster. And I guess they can kind of like walk out, but under Russian artillery fire and drones, that's a death sentence. So that's a whole lot of suck. And then down here,
Do we have any news about troop movements? Because General Butcher of Bakhmut is in charge now. I'm expecting meat waves.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that a deblocking operation is going to come because they still haven't ordered an evacuation. I mean, this situation right here. I mean, guys, look at this shit. This is atrocious. You don't even want to be out here, honestly. You don't want to have somebody up on your northern flank and southern flank like this. You definitely don't want to be. I don't even know how there's still Ukrainians in this filtration plant, honestly, if they're all.
That's the tragic part, man. Russia does this on purpose to give them a way out
Look at
to
this.
escape with their lives.
Look at this. This is the last like safe-ish town. Look at this. 7 miles basically behind enemy lines right here. That's insane, dude. It's such a narrow pocket too. I cannot believe the Ukrainians keep getting themselves into these situations. It's embarrassing, dude. Just commit more reserves to defending your flanks. It's like they only want to commit reserves once they are looking in the mouth of an alligator. I don't understand.
It's so bizarre. I think like they got high off their own Kool-Aid where they think they're invincible because they keep telling the world they're winning, right? And you keep repeating it enough, and you start believing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I what is even like? This was the same question I had with Bakhmut when they were doing the Bakhmut offensive and when they were trying to hold it. When the city's at this point, what are you going to do right here to like stabilize the city? Like, what is your like maximum goal? Is it to push the Russians all the way out of Avdiivka? Because that means you're going to have to push into 10-year fortifications down here in the Donetsk airport, in Spartak, in all of these areas, right? To get the Russians out of these fortifications. And the Russians have literally their logistics city right here. So I just don't like I don't get why the Ukrainians are so incessant on just holding these like I get not losing cities for PR reasons. I understand that. But this is lost. There's nothing that they're going to be able to do here to get this back.
Isn't this like their most fortified fortress city?
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, New York and Donetsk up here are also monsters. But yeah, Avdiivka was the big one. This is like the most developed in terms of fortifications in the whole Donetsk sector because
Well,
it's against.
there's your answer, my friend. It's the strategic move here would be to withdraw and pull back to a more advantageous position, shrink the line of contact so you have better force concentration, which then requires the Russians to double up on their troops to overwhelm, exactly like Russia did in Kharkov. But if it's your most heavily fortified fortress town, the morale collapse of losing it almost makes it worth hanging on to it till the last man.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that. My dog's scratching. Yeah, and same goes with Marinka. The reason why they held on to this for so long, same thing. I really don't think the Ukrainians have much back here in terms of fortifications either. I don't know. You can see the map, right, Clown?
I can.
Yeah, I don't think the Ukrainians have much back here. And what I've been talking about for the past couple weeks is the Russians pushing into Novomihailovka, which they're doing right now. Which, by the way, oh, it didn't. What? I updated my map and then it didn't save. Rip. Hold on. Hold on, everybody. This isn't supposed to be like this. I'm ashamed. I literally posted this map on my Telegram. So I don't know what happened, but
Well, while you're doing that, I'm gonna quickly address something I saw in chat.
oh yeah, go ahead.
It's that they don't wanna lose a city before they get their 60 billion. But the thing is, money can't buy manpower, and that's what they're short of. The 60 billion is military, is equipment. It buys them time, but it
Yeah,
doesn't give them more soldiers.
what you're looking at right now, guys, is basically post Kursk Germany. There is no way that Ukraine turns this war around, right? There's there unless the West does some miracle industrialization, which they're not even starting yet. It's not going to happen. Um, and even if they did, Ukraine still doesn't have the manpower, which is the big issue. They they don't they're not going to win another major battle. There is not going to be any time for them to reconcentrate force. Their air defense is dwindling, so everything becomes more and more complicated. Stop sneezing, please. Everything becomes more and more complicated, and that's my dog, sorry. And it just makes any offensive operations very difficult. So waiting for money is not the answer. I think that honestly, what Zelensky is doing right now is the best bet. I mean, it's not going to work, but I'm saying in terms of like probability, going all in and expending everything. Well, what they should have done before Bakhmut, basically, before Bakhmut ate up all of their resources, they should have gone with everything right here and actually,
Absolutely.
but they didn't.
It's
So
it's the same story with the American wargaming for the counteroffensive. Was you go all in and send wave after wave to overwhelm, and they could have pushed through had they. This sounds monstrous, but we're talking about war, right? And one of the first things you learn when you're studying it is they make you do exercises where you to drill into your head that you have to sacrifice troops sometimes.
Yep.
And they would have been, if they committed, went all in, they could have penetrated the defensive line and reached the rail junction at Melitopol, and then we'd be looking at a very different war.
I still don't know if they would have been able to do that, but they might have been able. I believe that they would have been at least able to make it to Tokmak.
And from Tokmat, the junction, if I'm not mistaken, is under fire control from artillery. Then they'd run out of ammunition, so it doesn't really matter. But the saddest part about that is I read a few weeks ago that Russia's building a second rail line, which completely obliviates the single point of failure at Melitopol. So the window for opportunity for even doing that is
a second one, meaning, are you counting this as one right here?
No, I mean via the land bridge.
So you're saying a second one? I know what you're talking about. Are you saying there's two now over the land bridge?
I don't know if it's when it's going to be finished. But I did a read that are laying down a parallel rail line.
Yeah, I know they had one that is planning on going like this. So it really does just completely negate the purpose of the entire counteroffensive. That's why they did it, though. They were on a clock, right? As soon as doesn't matter.
That's this entire conflict at this point in a nutshell. That is their only strategic play, because severing that junction, following it up with popping the bridge finally, not just disabling it for a few hours like they always do, but actually wrecking it, isolates the south from the north. You move into Kherson, and then you hold the Crimean Isthmus and siege them. They have supplies for a year or two in Crimea, but you completely change the face of the conflict. But that was their only strategic play if they want a shot at Crimea, and they're not going to get it anymore.
Yeah. And Crimea, I mean, even if they let's be real clear, even if the Ukrainians would have pushed all the way down, severed the land bridge, they're still probably not entering Crimea. I don't know how long did it take the Germans to break Crimea? They sat down there forever, and you're just expecting the Russian army to like not do anything in response to that. It seems kind of odd.
And they can't even do that anymore now, because you'd still need to split your forces to hold the north at bay. But I read earlier in the week, they claim to have 800,000 in manpower, which is half of what they had at their peak.
And then just so I might actually do this in Paint or something. Hold on.
But if I'm not mistaken, the 800,000 includes like territorial defenses and all that. It's not just the armed forces.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm multitasking.
So am I. This beer isn't going to drink itself.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this. Share the screen. There we go. All right. So basically, what we're looking at right now, this is what I made a post about this on Twitter, but basically, right now we have a push right here going up towards Kupiansk, cutting this road, a push coming down from Kupiansk and Sinkivka, which if Sinkivka falls, that's basically like the barrier into Kupiansk. Once Sinkivka falls, there's not really a good defensive line behind it before Kupiansk, and the Russians will gain fire control over this highway, which makes this entire area right here just basically untenable, and they'll have to retreat. And then we also have a Russian push down here near Geopolitical and Terny, which is pressing up against I think it's the Zhibiets River right here. And again, this area is another basically like a Ukrainian bridgehead where they do not have a good logistics line set up. They have to cross these little reservoirs and stuff. It's a very difficult area to hold, but this was the majority of the Kharkov offensive that actually mattered. This whole salient right here is what actually mattered in the Kharkov offensive. Everything on this side of the Oskol was like, it was cool. It was good to get. Izium was also important because Izium obviously is the way you capture Kramatorsk. But holding the Oskol would have been very beneficial for the Russians, and they just weren't able to do it. So this was really the biggest achievement, the biggest setback for the Russians in the Kharkov offensive by the Ukrainians. And this salient is even more difficult to keep supplied than the Oskol salient. So expect progress from the Russians in this direction. They're attacking there pretty aggressively. And then down here through the Shubiansky forestry, the Russians are going to try to push in towards Torsk from the south, try to basically get this front line along the Severodonetsk canal or river right here. And then we have progress in Avdiivka. We have Russian progress out of Bakhmut towards Chasiv Yar. That line is a little exaggerated, obviously, but and then we have progress out of Avdiivka, progress out of Marinka, progress to the south of Marinka, progress down towards Nova Mihailivka, and then a little bit of progress towards Ugledar, but I think there's some more stuff going on down here than what's being reported right now. So you can see how the Russians are maximizing the front line, trying to get the Ukrainians to spread out and have to transfer reserves all over the place, expose units as much as possible, and just keep them busy until they're worn out and tired.
Good to see you here, Mehdi.
Who? Oh,
Mehdi in chat.
Oh, nice.
My spaces homie.
Okay. I don't know these people. Let's see.
Speaking of which, though, because I don't want to get you demonetized. I can't speak like I do in spaces here, like dropping F-bombs left and right, right?
I cuss in my things, and that doesn't seem to really matter. I would just not be like, don't make it hateful. I know you're not a hateful person, so you're not going to do that. And then I think that's the only thing. But I would say maybe keep it limited. But I say fuck on my thing all the time. So.
I remember last time I was on here, I dropped a tabarnak, and your comments exploded. Like, oh my god, found the Quebecois.
Let's see. Thank you. By the way, if you guys want your questions to get up for sure, you can always give us, donate a super thanks. It's a good way to support me. It's an easy way to help me out. And your question will get answered right away. So this one is from Potentially Criminal. He says, would the Ukrainians have been better off using cruise missiles to interdict Russian rail infrastructure traffic instead of the Black Sea Fleet? No. Russian rail the whole Russian military is designed to run off rail logistics, right? They have, as well as the Ukrainians have, an unseen army of men who work for the railroad. I don't know if Ukraine still has that with how the war's been going, but the Russians have an amazing ability to fix rail lines like that. So like you'll see one get blown up by partisans somewhere, and it's fixed within a couple hours, right?
Yeah, that's
if you had a major SBU sleeper cell campaign going, and you could really do a lot of damage, but even then, there's just so many railroad workers. The railroad is pretty easy to fix. It's segmented, so you just go to where the damage is. You lift up that segment, you put in basically a new segment railroad ties and stuff like that, and then it's good to go.
Obviously, you are roboting hard, my friend.
Oh, I am?
It might be on my end. I have no idea, but that was weird.
Is it still happening?
No, you're good.
Okay, and let me know if it happens again.
But yeah, the problem with using cruise missiles for rails is you need to sustain the pressure on the rail infrastructure, and they don't have the volume of cruise missiles to do that. Maybe if they concentrated their FPV drones on the rail, but I don't know. I don't think the payload on them is big enough to take out a rail link. It's a conundrum that they don't really have an answer for.
You would have to target depots, and if you are targeting depots, even then they still just get repaired. It's the cost to yield ratio on that is just not there is no benefit to expending cruise missiles like that. But also, I would say attacking the Black Sea Fleet is also a complete waste of time. I don't know why they're doing that, other than PR, which is a victory for them. So that is what they're going for. But in general, the idea, what I would say is more important is taking out leadership. So HQs specifically targeting that very extensively. Because that's one of the ways that I thought Ukraine may have been able to win this war was by just making the higher level military costs so expensive for the Russians that people don't really want to go fight in this war. Make them the target, and they might be, and the Ukrainians just might not be capable. But going for ships in the Black Sea.
Oh wow. Okay. So that, and then there was one. There he is.
Hold on, I'm here. I don't know what just happened. My computer just froze or something. Can you hear me?
The stream froze. We hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what just happened. Something's going on right now, dude. It's
Fucking
weird.
Budanov doing his Budanoving.
Something's going on.
Oh, Zag appeared. That explains it.
Oh, it might have been that.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
Yeah,
homie,
good.
how are you doing?
Just doing well. Just finishing up my dog walk on a very pleasant 60-something degree day here.
Oh, nice.
What's that in real temperature?
I got
maybe like 15, 13, 14.
Oh, that's a fabulous day for this time of year.
Why isn't my cam working now? Hold on. Yeah, I didn't have a nice day today. We got like 3 inches of snow here. It was snowing all day.
That's not good. Someone's gonna have to clean it.
Yeah,
it's actually all melted, so it's already all gone.
That's kind of weird. It was raining all day. It was raining most of the day up here in the frozen north.
Raining. Did you guys see what was going on in California?
I try not to pay too much attention to California.
Yeah. They had to cancel a PGA tournament there last week. The last day of the round. They just played 54 holes because they got so much rain in the San Francisco area. Yeah, that's very uncommon. They had to bag it, man. Just like 6 inches of rain in like an afternoon, something like that.
That's wild. Trying to fix my camera.
I've been this post, man, about the blowing up of the mosque in Khan Yunis. People are going insane. I just can't believe how many people are cheering for this, saying it's not genocide, you're a liar. Oh, nobody was completely ignoring the cultural heritage of this, and the religious heritage is part of what genocide means.
I mean,
so I don't know. You can't communicate with these people.
It's just going to keep continuing. It's not going to change. It's just like depressing to talk about.
Yeah. What grinds me though is you see these Twitter spaces where it's like tell the finale because they're all gathered, all the civilians are gathered in Rafah, and now they're assaulting the south, and like this is a fucking TV show.
Yeah.
I was like, I should post about war too, yes, but that is just absolutely ghoulish.
Yeah, some of the different like groups that you run into in information spaces are just like horrible. The way they talk about people, it's unbelievable.
And I thought we were bad. Nothing in comparison. I said, and I thought we were bad, but we're nothing in comparison to these people. They're just demonic, evil.
Bro, I don't think I'm bad.
I
Well,
think
they
I'm
say
fine.
how
That thinks I'm
nasty
bad,
we
guys.
are, and
He said it.
well, I mean, you see a lot of the same sort of ignorance and stubbornness from the Ukraine crowd as you see from the Israeli crowd, just denying basic truths about the situation. And they expect you to sort of get on board because they're or insulting you or calling you names. I mean, this strategy really doesn't work. Um, I mean, just the whole notion that they're hiding weapons in a mosque when they have allegedly hundreds of miles of tunnels that are basically untouchable to Israeli munitions. Why wouldn't down there? Why would they need to use a mosque for weapons? I mean, when
I
you ask
mean,
that question,
devil's advocate, that would be the exit hatch would be in a mosque. But I'm not
yeah,
gonna.
there's
I'm
truth
just
to
saying that,
that,
but
but
I'm not gonna do propaganda for them. They could figure that out
right,
by themselves.
right. The mosque is a staging area. That every mosque in the Middle East is a staging area for Islamic terror. Is basically what their statement is. I mean, it just opens up the door for ugliness, and I'm not in the game of insulting people, but I just can't sort of handle the general stupidity about it. It just doesn't make sense unless your intent is to clearly eliminate the people from that enclave forever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Scott,
it's
I don't
just
want to bore you with this. Yeah.
no, it's not boring. It's just like dude, like I'm so defeated. Like in that conversation, I deal with the pro-Ukrainian crowd every day, but just like I don't have any connection to that part of the world, and watching people destroy themselves over dirt is like very, very hard for me. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it. So I
As someone with roots in that part of the world, it can't be explained. It's millennia old blood feuds.
Oh, I know. I know what it is, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, could you imagine being mad at somebody that your dad was mad like mad at somebody that wronged your grandpa? Like, it's like so weird to me. I just yeah.
Like I have legit heard an Assyrian who still holds a grudge over what Urartu did to like the ancient Assyrian Empire. This was like 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
Neither of those civilizations exists anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like hating it's like the sins of our fathers basically, and everybody's still paying for them, and they're killing each other because of what their fathers did to each other, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make sense from that perspective, but the states needs to advocate for, fund, aid, abet, support all these. Why it needs to do that for Israel, to me, is the thing that a lot of Americans should be asking themselves. We are serving the interests of the nation of Israel, not our own. And we have more Arabs, we have more Muslims in this country than Jews. I don't understand where we're getting the idea that any of this is going to lead to anything positive for the United States, for its people, for its culture. Nothing.
Oh,
I mean, it
come on!
just makes
It's not
us
about
look bad.
that.
I mean, it is. We're the number one funder and backer of
No.
Israel, you know?
I'm saying, it's never about what's best for us. It's never about that. It's all about money.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy that people like whatever you believe. I don't mind, but it's crazy to believe that there's like people in the United States who believe like the rapture is going to come on if Israel reclaims all of its territory. Like that whole like.
Oh gods, the accelerationists are
Yeah.
the most obnoxious. At least if they're entertaining accelerationists, like anarcho-posadas accelerationism. We need to nuke everyone because the aliens are communists and that dolphins will lead us to salvation. That's that's only slightly exaggerated, by the way.
Kind of based.
That's Posadas. That's at least entertaining. But like, no, we're gonna accelerate the war in Gaza because so they could build a temple so everyone dies. Like, fuck
Sweet.
off.
It's the ultimate genocide. They're just trying to finish it off for once and for all, right? All right, let's get to this question because we got people asking questions. Why is Avdiivka more important than Bakhmut? Why is there more at stake? I don't necessarily think that there is a more important part of Avdiivka. I'll go over to the map here just so you guys can see kind of what I'm talking about. So just the difference between the two is Avdiivka has been a frontline city since 2010, or I'm sorry, 2014. And since the conflict froze in, I think, 2015, 2016, this has been built up, and this has received a lot of the attention from the Ukrainian government because of its positioning close to Donetsk, which became basically like the capital for the DPR and the LPR, but it was just kind of, the Donbass grouping right here when it was a separated state from Ukraine. Whereas Bakhmut was further back from the front line. The front line had been over here more. So actually back over here behind Papasnaya. So when the Russians got to Bakhmut, it wasn't built up the same way. But Bakhmut is a much bigger city than Avdiivka, so the battle took a lot longer. Bakhmut also has a lot more depth than Avdiivka does. Which means that the Ukrainians could move around through here more. If something happened up here, they still had 14 different ways to get supply around the city.
If I'm not mistaken, Bakhmut is also on a plateau in a sort of bowl that overlooks all the main access routes. So if you have fire control up there, it is the ultimate strategic position to hold.
Where the Russians took the most losses and where Wagner took the most losses was on approach to Bakhmut. So coming in here, it was a nightmare. The Russians took so many losses. That's when we saw fields of dead soldiers. But those were the prisoners who had gotten out on their agreement that if they fought for 6 months, they would be released, pardoned basically. So that's what was a majority of those. I think something like 15,000 casualties came from the prisoners that were used, the penal battalions that were sent in here. But the difference here, the biggest difference between Avdiivka and Bakhmut is Bakhmut has Chasiv Yar behind it. Chasiv Yar is another high ground city. It's not a fortress, but it is a perfect staging, deployment, and logistics center for Bakhmut. So Bakhmut was really important because it was a big city that could be defended very well. It's very open on this side of Bakhmut on the approach. You can see it's less open on the backside. There's Chasiv Yar, there's Konstantinivka. You get into this urban conglomerate back here. So Bakhmut was a very defensible city. Soledar had to fall. If you remember, also there were salt mines throughout this entire area, which gave a massive advantage to the Ukrainian defenders. They could hide their logistics. They could sleep down there. They were away from artillery shelling, away from drones. They were safe in these underground passages, which also made Bakhmut a even greater fortress. And it's really a testament to how fast this battle went. After the Russians basically broke into Soledar over here and Soledar collapsed, this whole flank collapsed in short order. The Russians were already on this side of Kleshchivka. They got close to Ivanivsky over here. And again, we saw the salient, the deep salient with the city being protected. And you can see how the Ukrainians wanted to hold it because you can defend very deep here. Avdiivka down here is very different. It does not have a large urban center behind it. It does not have a notable high ground behind it. The city itself is quite thin this way. So once the Russians got up on this northern flank and held Krasnohorivka for long enough, Avdiivka became, it got put in a very difficult position. Bakhmut, remember, is much wider this way. And top to bottom. It's bigger, so there's more room to move around. In here you have basically like one road that comes through Avdiivka that keeps most of it supplied. Once that road is cut, this entire southern portion right here is cut off from the north and from supply. So
also it gives some relief to Donetsk, which, if I'm not mistaken, was being shelled from here.
No. So the importance of it is that the city was an absolute fortress on this side, like a defensive line that would rival, something made by the French. But once that's broken, Avdiivka doesn't really have any value really for the Ukrainians anymore. So it's not like Bakhmut, where the Russians were in this half of Bakhmut for a couple months, right? And the Ukrainians were still defending from this half because they still have all these logistics lines. Like you can see how there's roads. It's a crossroads town. So all these highways are coming in. That you can move around the city better, and this is just a different story. Once this fell, and once this pipe operation right here was successful, this whole salient fell. This whole salient is going to fall in very short order. And the importance for the Russians is that it pushes the Ukrainians very, very, very far away from Donetsk. And that's going to really give some relief to the citizens who have been shelled there for 10 years. And this is a huge, huge morale booster for the Russians. Taking Avdiivka and really doing something good for the people who have been suffering the whole time and what this whole war was kind of supposed to be about is going to be a massive boost to both, not only the people in the occupied territories. I get occupied, the Russian territories, but I'm just going to call them occupied because that's kind of what the map shows. In these red areas are really going to appreciate this city falling, and especially the people of Donetsk. So that's why it's very significant.
To be fair, that is the correct term to use, regardless of which. It's not a partisan term. They haven't been ceded by treaty. They're
yeah. People are always just like occupied, huh?
I get it, man. I get it. That's why I'm just taking advantage of your platform to state that this is the correct terminology to use.
All right. Let's see. Don't the Russians have armored trains? Yes, they do. I don't know how many they have, but they have armored trains. But armored trains really it doesn't prevent you from getting derailed by an IED or something. So it's not. Armored trains protect from ambushes from light arms and stuff like that, and could be beneficial, and drones, and would be beneficial closer to the front. But it doesn't really make a difference if it gets hit by a HIMARS or something. Oh, have you guys seen that armored train though? That thing is sick.
Oh, dude, that thing is
Don't they also have a railgun?
Beast. It's armed to the teeth. It's how do I describe this? It's like steampunk Soviet aesthetic. It's beautiful.
It's like it's like what you would see in oh my goodness, what is it called? Hold on. Metro, the Metro series. Hello?
Yeah, no,
So I'm like, what the?
No. So if you were bringing a dignitary, the armored train would be great. But as you said, a little strike on the track, and that thing is stopped. And if it's full of supplies, what do? You've got to unload them onto trucks, and then drive the trucks in a large column, which then becomes vulnerable and much easier to attack. So maybe that's why they haven't relied on the armored train. Because it seems like the Russians in certain areas can only bring things in slowly so as to avoid sort of those mass strikes that we saw in the first 6 weeks of the war, right? But if Ukraine is pushed out of Avdiivka, they're not going to be able to get as good of positioning to strike Russian targets, even though Western artillery is longer. It's still where do they have places to hide these things in the ground? Where are the concrete bunkers outside of Avdiivka? I don't know if they exist. Scott, what's the next logical fortified location that they would fall back to?
After Avdiivka?
Yeah.
It would be so back over. Well, they need to defend Orchutny. Like this needs to be defended. But there's not another major fortified. Like if you like zoom out, you can see that there's just like an absence of anything major. And even these towns that like sort of appear major, I mean, this is nothing. Like this is not a town. This is nothing. These are very, very small. Like if you look, there's no like major structures. These are very, very small, very dispersed villages. So and they haven't been built up at all. So after Avdiivka, there's just not a lot. But I'm sure they'll try to set up defensive lines around the geographical barriers.
Would you liken these situations of the smaller towns to like what happened on the way to the advance on Mariupol when Russian forces were going like village to village, and early on in the war, Ukrainian sources were showing, look at the destruction that these evil Russian orcs bring. They just level the village and just move through it. Is that what we're going to be looking at? Because I'd imagine Ukraine will use every urban area to defend, right? I mean,
I think that they're going to have to make some pretty big decisions here about what they're going to choose to defend and what they're not going to choose to defend, or they're going to have to be hyper aggressive and just figure something out. Like that seems like the two options that I can see right now. And I think they're going to go with the latter with the command decisions they made. So I think that they're going to fight everywhere on the front line where the front line is right now until they're absolutely exhausted. I don't even think you're really going to have to worry about each and every village needing to be cleared by the Russians.
We're absolutely going to see the same rhetoric as in Mariupol. We even hear it from Ukrainian reports, from Ukrainian sources of the front in Avdiivka, where their drone operators are holed up in fucking basements. Well, guess what? They're in basements. Those basements will get shelled. Those buildings above them will get shelled. But this is the thing with urban warfare. This has been my beef with Ukraine since the Mariupol front. If you're going to fight in a city, evacuate the civilians, because urban warfare is every building is cover. And if you are armed and you run behind a building for cover, that's a military target. It sucks, but it is what it is, and it's supported by the rules of war. So
what this person just said, Irma Grease was right. Do you know who this is?
I have no idea who Irma Grease was.
Google it real fast for me. I have no idea what that even means, dude. I feel like that's probably not a good thing, and it's a weird thing to say. That's why.
Okay, follow your leader is all I'm going to say about that.
Bro. That's crazy. Yeah. Let's see.
what about civilians in other future contact zones as Ukraine withdraws from the Donbass area or the Donetsk area? Are there civilians that are going to get trapped in this crossfire, you think?
Probably.
I personally think that they're going to be happy that it's coming to an end. Oh wait, you mean caught in a crossfire? I mean, there's always a chance.
Like another.
I'm sure that Ukraine will try to evacuate every single human being they possibly can to their territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll lose them to the Russians. I mean, literally, the Russians will say, "Hey, the Ukrainian bus never came to get you, so you want to head east for safety?" And they'll say, "Okay, sure. I mean, as long as my family is together, I'm happy to go."
Yeah. You have to assume that anyone who stays is waiting for the Russians, and everyone else will leave. This will especially start being more automatic once a line start collapsing and Russians start advancing on every front. But
did you guys maybe want to start like a BlackRock style company and just start buying up territory on the other side?
We'd get flagged so quickly.
Come on, dude. like it's even for sale right now.
You just imagine going to parts of Eastern Ukraine, finding a real estate agent there and saying, what can I buy? And then the Ukrainian government coming to you and saying, we're just going to take your land. I mean, that's basically what would happen. Or the Russians would say, we're just going to take this. I don't know. I think
Not if I buy it from the Russians.
Well, no, if you buy it from the Ukrainians, I don't know. I wouldn't do any business in or with Ukraine.
That's why Zag's never going to make it in the big time. He doesn't want to take any risks.
I'm not corrupt enough. Exactly. I'm not. I'll never be.
Come on. Where's your
Roll the dice, Zag. Roll the dice.
A little speculation never hurt anyone.
What is your
said
guys'
the
drink
people
of
who
choice?
speculated on mortgages in 2008.
What's your guys' drink of choice? Not what you're drinking right now, but what is your drink of choice?
I'm just drinking some wine right now. My drink of choice is hard. It just depends on the season, the time of day.
Eggnog.
You know.
Look at you, Mr. Fancy. Just pick your favorite drink.
I know.
Oh man.
It really depends on the season and
really does.
What the moon cycle's doing.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Like, I'm a beer guy. I'm not complicated. I like my good German lagers, my good Czech blondes. I'm a big fan of red, but I generally stick with beer. Although once I finish off this Pittsburgh, I am gonna bust out the absinthe.
I guess I like Scotch, like a nice single malt or a high quality blend. I also like beer, like a crisp European import, like a Stella or a Spaten beer, a Bavarian beer. I know our friend Kaiser would be happy about that.
That's why I was gonna say when we started, because I'm on Bittsburger tonight. It's good classical German German lager. If you're watching, Kaiser, Prost, mein Freund.
Yes, John, you should have Kaiser on sometime. That'd be hilarious.
What I should have on is Richard. I need to get Richard in here.
Richard would probably do it. Richard would be like, okay.
I send him that message and he never messaged me. That's so funny, dude.
Oh, well, I mean, in his defense, he gets pelted by like messages on Twitter, usually hate from people. So he once that starts, he generally stops checking, and in like a couple days, he might send you like a question mark or something like that.
Okay.
Oh, come on, that's not an excuse. I get over 100 a day. I try to answer everyone.
Okay, I'll come back to this question, Landon. But look at this. Bud Light.
Oh, that's no good, man.
Bro,
why are you doing my homie dirty like that, man? Come on,
Bud
Jimmy.
Light is like, well, first off, I'm not a
dishwater.
beer guy.
It's dishwater.
Yeah, I'm not a beer guy, but that's literally piss. The only time I can drink light beer like that is when I am just sloshed. If I get playing beer pong and I'm like deep, I can pound some Bud Light, but I'm not about that. My drink of choice is definitely whiskey. I like Woodford Reserve as like a good like cheap whiskey that you can get. Crown is okay too. But I like expensive whiskey. If there's not expensive whiskey, then like a Moscow Mule is always good.
Also a fan of mules.
Yeah,
those are good. I like the Glenlivet quite a bit. Like a good 14.
Oh, how did I forget, bro? I love Jaeger. I love frozen Jaeger. So good.
I have a bad relationship with Jaeger.
Yeah, that's most people. Everybody remembers it because they tasted it throwing it up. So that's why they're all.
No. I woke up at the airport with my pants on the other side of the runway.
On
a 3-day binge with a bunch of Russian homies. That was a good time.
Coronas are different. Coronas are different than Bud Lights. I put that. It's like a different beer. Corona with a lime, bro, is good.
Corona Light is kind of like pea water, but
I don't know about Corona Light.
Have you ever heard of a Jaeger Tap? Have you ever heard of
Corona Light? What am I, gay, bro?
Scott or Vaughn, have you heard of a Jaeger Tap?
Jaeger Tap?
Okay, so what it is
that like a Jaeger bomb?
It's even better than that. So
rotating, swing wide.
You take the Jaeger bottle, you unscrew the top and you pour it upside down into this dispenser that you put in the freezer. Okay. And you usually leave it like during the day and you start drinking it at night. And we got it so cold that the Jaeger was coming out with like pieces of ice in it.
Sweet.
And then we'd take a big styrofoam cup, pour some more ice into it, and then pour the Jaeger out into it. And you'd start drinking like, I don't know, 12, 16 ounce drinks of Jaeger, straight Jaeger, frozen Jaeger. Now, we bought about 6 bottles, okay? And over the course of one afternoon, night, early morning, I remember like getting back to my place in college at like 11 a.m. from drinking since like 5 p.m. the day before, just Jaeger. And I remember just being so sick. Finally, the alcohol poisoning hit me from just like finishing, I don't know, a bottle and a half, 2 bottles of Jaeger personally.
Oh.
And I just spent like not a day, 2 days almost, even 3, like on the floor of my bathroom. I don't want to get into the other things that we were enjoying, but suffice it to say, it delayed the reaction. So the Jaeger poisoning, that was it. I swore it off. I smelled it again, and I.
Yo, yeah. If you ruin
Done.
yourself, if you ruin yourself on an alcohol and you smell it again, it's just like horrible memories.
But it was so cold and so delicious that there was just nothing. We just had to continue drinking it. It was bad news.
All right. Let's get to this question. Do you think it's possible that the Ukrainians have tunnels leading from under Avdiivka to nearby villages, allowing them to resupply their forces? So no. The reason why that the Ukrainians had tunnels under Bakhmut is because of the salt mines that are in that area. There are mines that are all underneath Bakhmut itself. The only thing that Avdiivka has is a salt quarry. Or I'm sorry, a sand quarry. So there's no intricate tunnel system. The way the Russians got in was they burrowed into a like drainage pipe or a sewer pipe. I don't know which of the two, but yeah,
that is brilliant. We have this.
They were planning it for over a year, dude. That's that they
Scott, you have no idea how happy I am to see someone use that strategy in the real world. We have an assignment. We have literally using sewage tunnel. We have an assignment where we scout out the mountain here in the middle of downtown, where there's a chalet on the top. The scenario is terrorists take it over. You take photos, you scout the terrain, you plot a strategy, and we went in with a tunnel, and our strategy was sending people in through the tunnels with bayonets. And I'm so happy to see it used in the real world.
Sweet. Sweet, that's what's up.
And that assignment gets the rules changed every semester because of my cohort, because we keep doing ridiculous shit like using electricity as a weapon, building trebuchets, poisoning the water supply, flying RC drones over it, dropping chlorine and lye. So there's a long list of shit you can't do anymore. But using the sewage tunnels isn't one of them because we actually
wait.
We snuck into the tunnels to take pictures.
We can't do these things.
Pardon?
Who said we can't do these things anymore?
I mean, this is an academic. This is for academic credits.
You could throw dead bodies into the water reservoirs too.
You could also, because it's Montreal, right? So there's a lot of stray dogs. You could drop meat from RC drones on it and let the stray animals devour everyone.
Oh God.
Crimea will return to Ukraine. I just am curious, like, where's the math? Like, because if you can do like even basic elementary level math, you should know that.
What is it? John got here. Fantasy. Crimea returns to Ukraine.
No, but John got here late. We actually discussed, John, in depth why the window of opportunity for Crimea has closed. You missed it. You could go and watch a recording when it's uploaded.
Yeah, go back and check it out. It was pretty detailed, and at the end of the day, they set it up for a year and they weren't able to do it. And there's less funding now, less artillery shells, less trained manpower. How are they going to get it done? They're not. That's what you got to wrap your brain around. I hope it's a parody.
Scott, someone says that they don't know who Vaughn and I are, that you should introduce us.
Oh, everybody who doesn't know who's just joining, this is Von Clausewitz. He is a how would you describe your Twitter account?
I mean, I'm a shit poster, but I studied like political science, and like I'll laugh at someone and explain why what they're saying is ridiculous from an academic theoretical perspective.
He often quotes people, but changes the quote, so it's like what they actually are saying, not what they mean to say. Dogs. Okay. Hold.
Well, your turn, Zag.
Well, listen, I like to host a lot of Twitter spaces on geopolitics or U.S. politics or various cultural conundrums or just sort of BS fun spaces. I enjoy doing these spaces with Scott and Vaughn in the past on the sort of strategic.
Zag, we're like OG Twitter. So like.
Yeah, it's been about a year, man. Almost a year that we've been doing these, these spaces, and
more than a year, I think.
Maybe more than a year now.
I think more.
Yeah, and
isn't that crazy, bro?
It is pretty crazy. And I guess at this point now, I would consider my account to be, I think the labels Twitter gave me. I don't want to go and look for it now because I'm afraid this app will crash. But
hold on,
it's just like warfare, geopolitics, like current events, U.S. politics, cultural stuff. And I would probably assume, like Vaughn, a pretty well-known troll at this point. But I haven't been banned yet, so there's that. And
that's a funny thing you say that, but I'm not a troll. I'm a shit poster. There's a difference.
Well, I don't know what you'd call me.
Oh, your shit post foo is getting strong, my friend. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, people are getting very upset, and I'm going to mention this one account who I think a lot of your listeners, Scott, should be aware of, because it's this type of person that's fueling the Ukraine policy from the United States in the legislative settings. When you're on one of these legislative committees in the House, you have a lot of power, and she works for a think tank, Rebecca Heinrichs. And this person is more of a hawk than some of our hawkish friends from Spaces, even.
I'm sorry, I just saw Bubbles' comment. Well played, Bubbles. Well played.
I mean, just like advocating for U.S. to send never-ending supplies of weapons, because like that's all Ukraine needs is just weapons. What are we going to send them? Robotic men? That's what they really need, is manpower. So none of these think tank scholars ever address the pressing questions. What do you do about the limited manpower and well-trained men available?
It's tragic, really, because at this point, if Rob Lee is openly talking about, I quote, acute manpower shortages, it's a lot worse than it seems, because we've been talking about this for months, because it's been obvious for months. So imagine how bad it is to be noteworthy enough for the people who never say anything bad about Ukraine to start commenting on it.
Hey, have you noticed that a lot of the actual realistic, like pro-Ukrainian accounts are now like dooming? Like, it's bad, dude.
It's so sad, man. Like angry Ukrainian, it hurts my soul.
That he or she, I don't know, is having a very difficult time blaming everybody, but then you go and you comment something like basically like, this is what we were trying to say for like the last year and nobody listened to us. Like we've been saying this stuff nonstop and everybody called us liars. And then the stuff starts playing out. Like, you know how, dude, first off, got called a liar for the whole POW plane crash thing. I pressed that story so hard. I feel like I was on the front edge of that whole thing. And God damn it, dude, I'm going to tell people that I was fucking right, because I got told that I was wrong by every single goddamn person in my feed. It was so annoying.
Oh man, all these comments
Well,
in
not
chat.
everybody.
I gotta address. Yeah, Andrew Perpetua is in a bad place right now.
Oh,
Julian, I am so sad. Finally blocked me. It's like the 5th account he blocks me on.
Dude, I'm blocked by every single
No,
person.
even Visegrad and Tendar.
No, not Tendar. Well, Tendar, dude, Tendar is like a bot. Like that is like an account that's run by an AI.
No. You know what's it's even worse than that. Tendar is a real person.
Yep.
I was paneling with him on Mario's space when
Oh,
we were
no way. He's real?
when we were live commenting
real.
He never
the
comments or
Prigozhin thing.
responds
He
or
doesn't say
anything.
anything ever because he's paid to do it. He doesn't care.
No, but he's a real
Wow,
person.
that's fucking wild. Holy
And he was
cow.
him and Jessica Berlin were ranting about how it's a living history moment, like the fall of Berlin Wall. And I lambasted him so fucking hard. But like I was shocked. He's a real person.
Yeah, he's German, I think.
Yeah, German.
So I have some inclinations to believe that he is somehow a member of the German military apparatus, but their cyber team. So he's probably some low-ranking military personnel that just sits at a computer and shitposts on behalf of the aggressive EU military apparatus that just wants to promote warfare indefinitely. And I mean, he's got that slant to him because he never, ever blocks people. Just doesn't care. You can say the worst things about him and he won't do anything about it. And you'll get a lot of likes and views on his page. So
Is this still Tendikins?
Yeah, this is Tendar. He's just a well-paid member of the German military who I think is in their cyber division and just sits there all day long posting about this. I mean it. I think that's what his job is.
His account is weird. And then like it's wild to me that Visegrad doesn't get community noted ever.
They do. They're one of the top 20 most community noted accounts.
I never see community.
I saw
the stats.
That are like blatant lies. I'm like, what the
blatant?
It's horrible, dude. Like I've never seen like literally it's just lying and like pure assumption on every single post. Like what was it? What was the one today? It was about the family that died. That supposedly a family died in Ukraine because of the Russian guarantee. Right?
Yeah, from Kharkov, right?
A house burned down. But I was looking at the satellite maps and I'm like trying to figure out where this happened because the house is burning down is nowhere near the oil depot that is burning. So because it's like in an industrial area. I mean, it's nowhere near this house. So I'm trying to figure out where like a Guarantee maybe was shot down or an air defense missile hit this house and lit on fire. But the way that the Ukrainian government worded it said during a Guarantee, when the Russians were flying these drones over Ukraine, it started a fire. And then it was two separate events that they were talking about. Like, and I was very confused and I couldn't figure out how this house burned down when it was this oil refinery that was targeted. And maybe it was just, something we're just missing. But I feel like this happens a lot where not necessarily an unrelated event, but something that's not the Russians' fault is just attributed to them. Like with the air defense missiles, like I guess it is their fault that they're flying missiles over, but that, they claim it's a Russian missile that did this when it's really not. That sort of stuff. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I was looking all over for information on it, but it was just only in pro-Ukrainian information spaces, and it was all like virtue signaling about how bad the Russians were because they killed a family. And I was like, okay.
I remember when he posted a footage of a Russian Terminator that was literally posted a day before all over by the Russian MOD as like, behold the power of the Ukrainian BMP-2.
Yeah, what is that, like circa 1977?
Bro, I got people still posting Su-57 rivets on my posts. So, you want to talk about like
it's so weird that because like, okay, look at the the Blackbird and the Valkyrie, amazing feats of engineering, but those things would come back with pieces missing. This is any high performance aircraft is going to have stuff like that. It doesn't change what it's capable of doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be functional.
Yeah.
Did you see someone's asking Vaughn and I to offer our predictions on the future of the Ukraine war? I don't know if you want to.
Hold on, where is that?
Oh, also, I want to state the one about
707
the
Landon
rivets on the Su-57. That's the early prototype to see if it could fly. Just an FYI.
here,
That's not even a production model. Oh man, this is the third time I answered this today. I'm not in the business of making long-term predictions.
Yay.
In fact, Scott, as you know, I won't repost anything that I can't verify with 90% certainty because it's my academic background. I can't help it.
Double gay. Risk it. Post it.
But look, based on the information we know and the information we suspect, it's a matter of time before the defensive lines start collapsing due to lack of manpower. This is to say, unless they could, violate the human rights of all the Ukrainian refugees in Europe and like have them repatriated. But that'll only buy them time. It's not going to turn a tide. The F-16s won't arrive in time and in large enough quantity. It's already too late. It can't offset the manpower, the manpower shortage. I see this going on for another year at the minimum, though. I don't see this ending quickly because here's the thing with manpower depletion: it's not linear like people think. You'll keep going and you'll keep going, and eventually, as many of chat have pointed out, all the highly trained, Western trained forces are gone. They're dead. So they're sending less and less trained soldiers to the front, and eventually you just get to a point where it goes from linear to exponential losses and lines start collapsing. I feel once Russia gets a major breakthrough and really pushes through it, that we'll start seeing a cascade failure. But I can't estimate a time frame on that.
Probably like 5 to 6. Could be 7.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what's certainly not going to happen, and that's Ukraine regaining any of the territory it's lost, especially Crimea. That's just out of the question. You can't recreate what you lost manpower-wise. Even if you send back all 800,000 of the guys they're crying about having fled, you got to arm them, train them, get them psychologically ready for a foxhole or a trench. And that's just not an easy feat. You're out of a tremendous amount of equipment from the terrible losses from this poorly planned botched summer offensive, guys. I mean, that was the dumbest thing I think Ukraine has done, was continue to push after they were clearly not going to gain anything after Verbove. That was a waste of hundreds of pieces of good equipment. That was a quandary for me. I wondered why they did that. I think that was to prove to the West they could get more, and it backfired because they clearly failed, and they walked into minefield after minefield after minefield. It's some of the most tragic video from this entire conflict came from that operation. Remember those guys jumping out into the minefields?
I have it saved in a folder on my phone. I have it specifically saved. Because it is the single hardest video I think I've ever watched in this conflict, dude. Watching that guy jump out and think he's okay, and then he puts his knee down and he just does a flip. Oh man, that's so rough.
That was so bad. That was just seeing the whole leg blow off. That was really rough. But
oh god, that one. Thanks.
Yes.
I did not need to remember that. But
Yeah,
since we're on that and
bad.
we're reliving PTSD of counteroffensive footage, how about that time where an APC that seemed like a clown car shows up and there's a dozen Ukrainian infantry just getting blown up in a minefield one after the other? That was brutal.
Or how about the one where the mines start going off and the IFE or the APC begins moving along, and there's like a wounded guy, and then like all of a sudden out of the thicket rushes like a non-wounded guy, and they leave him there anyway. And then you see another like FPV drone or whatever come and like take him out. That was like one of the saddest things too that I saw. It's like you left that guy there, able-bodied, along with the injured guy, and they were both taken out because you're cowards. I mean, that was the worst thing I saw. Yeah, I mean, it's so sloppy and ugly.
Well, on that note, do you guys have I shared with you guys why I stopped doing OSNT?
No, what happened?
Early on in the conflict, before no, this was after I started Von Clausewitz. I was with a few colleagues watching footage from the first Kherson counteroffensive, and we were trying to count the dead. And I grew up with footage from the genocide, from the Armenian genocide, being forced onto me. And I have not seen that much death ever, and I never want to again. So I stopped doing OSN because you study war long enough, you develop a dark sense of humor, you think you're immunized to it, but you're not immunized to literal mountains of dead.
Nope, you're not. I have the darkest, coldest sense of humor. I often think like I can deal with anything. Like I could see anything because I've seen like dead people before in real life. It hasn't particularly like bothered me. Not like my grandpa, like actual dead people that have died in traumatic ways, and that doesn't really bother me so much. But watching like this, like following this conflict and seeing it like over and over and over, dude. I was at the park the other day and I saw a guy flying his drone around.
Oh God!
And he was like filming. He was like chasing, kind of, but like filming a kid. And dude, it made my stomach turn. Like I literally was like praying for that kid to get away from that drone because of what I just watch every day is like human lives just being like taken away by these little toys. It's wild.
Yeah, you'll never, just like after 9/11, I never looked at a plane in the sky the same way. We'll probably never look at a drone again the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Some of the worst ones are the grenade drop videos.
Oh shit! Suddenly, because of this, I understand why. I had a cousin who emigrated from Lebanon. Like this was a long time ago, and her first summer in Canada.
Hey guys, just for those of you who don't know, that's right above Israel. Go ahead.
We took her to the Canada Day fireworks, and the fireworks start. She's hiding under a table in the fetal position, screaming. I finally understand that.
Yeah. It's like, it makes sense when they talk about like snipers coming back with really bad PTSD because you follow you see the people die. Sometimes you're like watching them for a long period of time. You like see their faces and then you like kill them and you watch them get killed by the bullet that you just fired, like on a 2-second delay. And then you come back and you're just supposed to like forget that. It just never happens.
People sometimes get slight PTSD from constant deer hunting. When you're stalking like forever and you take out this majestic buck and you do it like every weekend for like 2 days in a row during the season. When you're done, people say that you're just like, I've become very desensitized to shooting and killing things, and that's like a bad thing, you know?
It's a coping mechanism. It's a good way to
exactly. And then after
stay mentally alive.
Yeah, you just become programmed to do it. And then once this war stops and ends, you're basically useless to society at that point because all you can do is kill people.
So what Zag just did right there is he just gave serial killers a biology excuse. That's what Zag's doing.
Well, Zag, you are go to Ukraine and fight.
Bad Zag.
Bad
Zag.
Zag. You gotta be careful with your words, dude. Somebody's gonna clip that.
Just because you're the rightful heir to the throne of the Tsar doesn't mean you could say stuff like this, Zag.
It's true.
Yeah. I got to be careful. I don't want anyone doing any crazy stuff on my watch.
How was your walk?
The walk was good. Took the dog for a nice long walk. Now he's waiting to be fed, so I'm going to feed him here in a second. But yeah, another thing we never talk about are the pets in Ukraine that are really terribly affected by the war. You know what I mean? Like, not just like
Dude,
the people's
this
little
is
lapdogs.
this.
No, but I mean like the strays.
Dude, this
That
is the
sucks.
saddest
That's
shit
just
ever.
that is sad.
The strays and one thing that always makes me so sad is thinking about like animals left in cages at like zoos and stuff during wars and oh man, that's the worst.
On a brighter note, it does occasionally leave us with footage like the France riots when there's a lion running through the streets of the outskirts of Paris.
Yeah. That one, and what was the other one where there was animals that got out? I think it was in the US. Well, there was one in Ukraine too, wasn't there?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
there's-
Oh yeah.
There's
In
a lot
Mariupol?
of, there's a lot of footage of
Mariupol Zoo,
strays.
right?
It's in Ukraine. I mean, I feel bad, like feeling bad about the animals because that happens to people as well.
Yeah. But sometimes
Yeah.
you feel like people make a decision though, right? Like a dog doesn't get to decide at all. He doesn't even know what you're fighting over. The dog,
they can just hear the
it's like when you see those like mules or donkeys in Gaza. It's like, bro, how unlucky that those donkeys could have been born anywhere, but they had to be born in Gaza, bro.
right. The Gazan donkeys. So
God damn, dude, did not win the lottery there. There are horses everywhere, dude. And there's not even that many donkeys in Gaza. And you had to be born there. And then a J dam goes off next to you.
Could you imagine being a person born in Gaza? Oof. Just like the worst lottery ticket, or like Eastern Ukraine now.
Yeah, dude.
Just
I like
Oh,
that's
God,
what, that's where I'm always like, that's why I'm always like super cautious when I talk about the US because like I don't want people to get like the wrong idea. Like there's a lot that's really good about the US. Like there's a lot that works, but there's also a lot that doesn't work and I want to fix the stuff that doesn't work. And
exactly. That's
a
what
lot
it
of the
shits
foreign
me.
policy.
It shits me so hard when people are like, "You can't be a patriot," and
Like look at
question the
John,
government.
yeah, like John Scott right here is talking about how he can't understand how Americans are like helping Russia. First off, I want to ask you, how am I helping Russia? By spreading news? Because if it's, I mean, like that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because if they're wrong, then they're wrong, and then my news is wrong or my propaganda or whatever you want to call it is wrong. I don't really understand how I'm helping them by talking about it. I feel like that means that we're getting to the real root of the issue, which is that nobody's really wrong here, even though you want somebody to be wrong here. And so when you're saying, oh, why are you supporting Russia when you're an American? I'm not supporting Russia. I want there to not be a war in Ukraine. And I think that the US is propagating it. Like that's how I think about it. So I want that to stop. I want my America to be better for the world.
Yeah, I just want to address something John said. Like, look, how does misrepresenting what's happening on the ground help Ukraine? First and foremost. Second, it's not like you're slow upping ammo. It's that you don't have the production lines for it in Europe. You don't, and it's going to take years to rebuild those production lines. This is what all your favorite commentators like to talk about, how the ICBM factories in Russia are just left running and producing nothing for years at a time. That's because once production lines are closed, they are non-trivial to open up. And I'm being nice there. The A10 production lines have been closed for 30 years.
Yeah.
They can't reopen them. There will never
Probably
be
don't-
another one built again.
They
Same
probably
with the
don't even
F-22.
exist, right?
Pardon?
The assembly lines probably don't even exist anymore.
They don't. They've been closed for 3 decades.
You think a company's going to leave space empty like that?
Same with the F-22. At this point, the A-10 needs to be retired because they're cannibalizing A-10s to keep others running, because they're out of spares and they'll never produce another one again. Artillery obviously is different. You could rebuild the production lines, but this takes time. And John, they are not going to be done at the scale that is required
You
in
guys
time.
would give up to Hitler. Dude, people, like, I wonder.
You are not built
Damn
up
it.
right now. You are not. Your shells, Rheinmetall's shells cost 8,400 per shell. That is 12 times more than it cost Russia and North Korea to build them. You do not understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's another account on Twitter that always comments on our posts that says the same thing. Just you wait until they ramp up shell production. Just you wait. Just you wait.
I'm
Yes,
impressed.
We're waiting. Go ahead.
No, but legit, I'm impressed with how quickly the U.S. is getting it done. It's still going to take. It's like 12 to 36 months is a very very short time to octuple production like they're aiming for. Kudos to the United States. It's still not enough, mind you. It's still not enough, but it is a Herculean effort, and kudos to the United States. But Europe, no, because I've been writing about this for a long time. This is what trips up a lot of pro-Ukrainian and Europeans, is that I am very hardline on the EU on the EU Unified Army. I'm very hardline on it. But Europe can't go 10 minutes without undermining its military-industrial complex by not buying its own equipment. Therefore, they cannot develop the economies of scale required to push prices down to make it affordable to them and make it competitive. It is pathetic that only 3 European countries fly Rafales. It is pathetic.
Did we lose Scott?
We lost Scott.
Don't worry, Chad. I'm sure he'll come back. But yeah, John Scott. I mean, I've seen some silly comments. I think it's one thing to live in like a fantasy land, like a lot of people who love pro sports teams or college sports teams. They're what we call fans, which they always hope and dream for things to take place that they have no control over and really have generally no idea about. So I think that's very similar to what's happening in this conflict. We have lots of fans, and there are fans on the Russian side too that always cheer and root, and it can be a little cringe. But I think
make fun of them as well.
Fans in the Western world, sadly, publicly, that are outspoken, right?
It's sad to me because I'm not singling out John because he's just an irrelevant troll, but he does represent a mentality that isn't uncommon, where you're standing for shit that really has no effect on you. You're not going to a front. You're not experiencing this. It's not your brother or father or uncle who's on a front line dying in a trench. You don't care. This costs you nothing. Oh, well, I mean, except your quality of life, because there's a cost of living crisis going on in Europe that Europeans pretend isn't happening. But that's besides the point. It's very easy to be hardline when you're not putting anything on the line. But my dude, doesn't matter how much money you throw at this, you can't buy manpower.
No, you can't. You can't grow manpower on trees. And let me say something else. This general trope, you're traitors to the West. Well, what is the West? The West is sort of an open economic globalist system, basically that thrives off of internation commerce and free market and sanction-free operations. That's what the West is really based on economically. So these sanctions and this obsession with curbing Russia is basically hurting, especially Europe. And it makes no sense logically. It's just the West is pissed, took its toys out of the sandbox and went home because the Baltics, parts of Eastern Europe, and other players are very sad that the Russians are trying to sort of resurge on the scene as a global player after a pretty tragic 25 years post-Soviet collapse, maybe 30, right? So there are people that never wanted this to happen and never expected this to happen. And now that it's happening, they're basically apoplectic. And they're afraid that Russia will do what they've done historically, take over weak places in their near abroad. It's possible, Vaughn. This could happen still. It could happen.
I'm not
But it
sold, man.
probably won't. And it's an irrational fear, right? And it's just unhealthy to suggest that what's happening in Ukraine is going to be what's happening in Poland and the Baltic states and Romania. That's just fear mongering.
Yeah, I don't think Russia taking on NATO is something that's actually going to happen. Although London poses a very interesting question. How would you address to the both of us? How would you have a conversation with a friend or family member who has a different view than you on Ukraine? The way I do this is I stay calm and just stick with proper. Like you guys know, like those who know me know, I'm big on proper methodology. I have to back up my my arguments with the requisite logic chain, right? And I'll just stay calm and explain the quote unquote facts on the ground and stick with that. I don't care about rhetoric, and if they start talking to me about right and wrong and good and evil, I just like, bro, no. It's international politics. It's war. There's no good and evil. There's what works and what doesn't, and let's stick to empirical discussion because we're not going to convince each other on morals because those are subjective. Let's stick to the facts on the ground, and that usually goes over well. And if it doesn't, we tend to just agree to disagree.
I'm back.
Because I'm not like a lot of rabid Ukraine stands. I am not going to break personal relationships over a disagreement on international politics. It's my field of study. It's not personal, you know.
What are we talking about?
Oh, we're just talking about some of your troll John Scott's comments about how Ukraine's going to pull this off somehow miraculously, and that we're all big haters of the West.
I was addressing Landon's question of how we approach the topic of Ukraine with friends and family that we disagree with.
Right.
You just start with the fists. Hold on, come here.
What?
Say hi to everybody.
In doubt, fisting.
No,
Quote
say-
Scott, 2024.
Hi.
That's my girlfriend, everyone. She puts up with me. She's getting me
Hi,
drinks.
Scott's girlfriend.
They've talked to her before, so
Just wait for the NAFO responses to that one, Scott.
they can hear you talking. So
I'm being awful because you got me sick.
yeah, she's sick right now. Ew.
Oops.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, back to it. Go for it.
Maybe.
Did you guys know that my computer just ate shit for no reason? But StreamYard is cool. That StreamYard.
The Israelis. It's the Israelis.
It's Budanoving.
I wish I was that important. That'd be sweet. If I ended up getting my messages read or something like that by a government agency, I'd be like, I'm doing something right. But no. Even though everybody thinks that we're working for somebody or some shit.
I also just want to share Budanoving. Turning into a verb because in French, bouder is a verb and it means to sulk, and I think that's hilarious.
He's a kind of an ugly little dude, huh? They're all kind of ugly little dudes. That whole government is kind of ugly.
I'm just gonna say, Dimitro Kubela has the most punchable face on the internet.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. More punchable than who has a really punchable face?
What about Pekka?
Like, dude, I could probably throw like a mean right into Hillary's. You know, I bet like that's a punchable face. When you listen to her talk, oh Kamala too. Why is it women? I'm just choosing only women.
What about
Hold on.
Barack Obama?
Nah, he's kind of like, even if you don't like him, you're like, this guy kind of talks cool. You don't want to punch Obama. Who do you want to punch right in the face?
What about what about John Bolton?
No, but
I want to offer him
Lindsey
fried
Graham,
chicken.
dude. When Lindsey Graham goes up there, I feel like that would be murder, though. I don't want to go to jail for murder. Punch old grandpa, he might die.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham is. I'm convinced that him and John Bolton, there's as hawkish as they are, because dead people are the only thing that get them erect anymore at this point.
Oh, you know who else has a punchable face? Is Peskov. Peskov has a very punchable.
Oh,
face.
absolutely! Oh, fuck! Every time I see his
I
face,
kind of just want to bully him just a little bit.
I want to punch him in the larynx specifically.
Doesn't he seem like the least like alpha? Or I guess that's kind of a weird thing to say, but of like the three, like Putin, Lavrov, and then Peskov, it's just so funny.
Yeah, and Gerasimov, I don't want to punch him, but he looks so much like fuck, what's his name? Star Trek original series, the pilot.
Oh,
Yeah, I know who you're talking
yeah,
about.
Nuclear vessels guy. Chekhov.
Yeah, Chekhov. Oh man, if you guys got questions, go ahead and throw them up. Was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about other than, Biden? Why did he do that press conference?
He totally stole Tucker's thunder.
Dude, what the fuck was he thinking? That was
He wasn't. That's the thing, is he wasn't. He's not. He reminds me so much of my grandmother when she was on right before she got under her descent into terminal dementia. And it's tragic and sad, and it just, seeing them trot him about on stage and shit, it feels like elder abuse.
it was like I heard that Jill Biden was complaining about why they let him go back out like the second time. Why go out the first time? Do you even have to do that address to the nation? I don't think anybody was waiting for that. It was such a weird thing that they set up. It made no sense.
Yeah, it's everyone. Like three of us at least thought it was in response to Tucker's interview, but it
Yeah, we
wasn't.
were all like tuning in, and then as soon as Zag, you said, "Oh, it's about the documents," I was like, whatever. But then he screwed up bad.
He shot the bed hard.
Why did he take questions? Why did he take his first question from the guy from Fox who just lays into him every time? That's elder.
That was elder abuse. But they set a standard with Trump where they were just so relentless, man, that if Biden didn't respond, people would come after him for being unresponsive and shrouded in secrecy. What are you hiding? He had to. He basically set the standard. They go after Trump, they got to go after you for mishandling documents.
Yeah. And
he's sitting president. You can't prosecute him. You can't.
And then why did he was in the middle of having a press conference about classified documents, him breaking the law, him not being able to stand trial because he's mentally unfit to be in office. He's walking out, he's off stage, and then he hears somebody ask about Israel, and the dude marches back up there. And then, obviously everybody saw him call the president of Mexico, Sisi, on the southern border of Israel. which is hilarious in and of itself. But that right after you're getting grilled, yeah, who set this thing up in the first place? Because nobody was waiting for it. Literally, nobody was like, "Hey, we need this press. We need to press the nation
It's
about."
really good. The CC thing is, a lot of people see it as a cute, funny Biden being confused thing, but it's really concerning. There's a few days earlier, he had mentioned that he had spoken to François Mitterrand twice. Mitterrand has been dead for over 20 years, by the way.
Yeah, that was hysterical.
He mentioned that he had recently spoken to Helmut Kohl, who's been dead for a while as well. And who was the third dead European head of state he was talking to recently?
Hasn't he referenced the Queen too since she's been dead?
See, this happened to my grandmother before she passed. She would be having conversations with her dead siblings who've been dead for 20 30 years. My grandfather, who's been dead for 10, because she's in a different time and place in her head. And this is onset dementia. It has to be.
It's unbelievable to me that the people on the other side of the aisle from the people that are normally saying it are like the super Republican, like, Biden has lost his mind. He's not there. But then like everybody in the middle was like, okay, what's wrong with this guy? And then there's still like a group of people that are like trying to make excuses like, oh, who doesn't forget a name of a leader or something, or who doesn't mix up something.
Or like, he's met all these people in his life.
The dude is struggling to like connect the dots here. It's not a simple mix up. He sat there in that press conference and was like, and that was him. What I believe is what happens is they get him all jacked up on some sort of barely legal methamphetamine and get him out there, and his brain is going a mile a minute, and he still couldn't keep it together. He's deteriorating fast, I think. I'm pretty sure we're going to get Michelle Obama.
Yeah, this isn't even a partisan thing, and it shouldn't be. Like, I'm not American, first and foremost. I don't have a horse in this race, but I'm also, as you two know, pretty far on the left. So this isn't a partisan, it's a Democrat, blah, blah, blah. No, this man is not well.
Yeah. He's definitely not healthy. If he was my grandpa, I'd be like, oh, my grandpa has like 6 months to live, like a year to live. Like what you're seeing right there is that like slow decline that just starts ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And then, I mean, I may be 2 years, but it's bad. It gets bad quick, especially at that age.
Absolutely. He's what, 79?
No, like 83.
83, dude.
82, 83.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think he'll be 83. Right? He'll either be 82 or 83 this June.
Here we go. Bubbles, ask a question. Scott, what do you think about Terminator tank support vehicle?
Bad ass.
Those are awesome.
It is very sick. And for it being an infantry support vehicle on a tank chassis, I think that's cool. And it does a very important job. I don't know how it's performed actually, like in cities. I haven't seen very many of them operating within any cities. They've mostly been up in the forest around Cremona, because that's where the O group was for a long time. And I'm pretty sure they get most of the best equipment, and that would be in that category. But it works great. I've seen it shrug off a lot of like FPV hits and stuff. So it does what it needs to do. I just don't think there's enough of them right now to really be making much of an impact.
It has a 130 millimeter machine gun. I mean, that thing, I've seen that thing mow down trees.
No,
I have seen buildings fall apart under fire from it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, 230 millimeter cannons.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, and it has some pretty good reflexive or what do they call it? Reactive
armor.
Yeah, reactive armor. It's but Scott's right. There aren't enough of them, and there aren't enough of them to throw some into an assault situation where they'd be very effective. but there would be some Terminator kills, and I don't think the Russians really feel like losing one or two of those to the NATO Ukrainian troops and then have them examine them. No, can't have that.
All right, here we go. Y'all are just jealous because Biden is medium, is a medium, and you are not. What does that mean? A medium?
Oh, like size wise, I think.
No, I think that they mean like that whole thing about how Margot Robbie's mid for the incels who haven't seen a woman in person have been doing a few months ago. So I don't know if you're calling Biden a mid. What's a
Or is he a medium like he sees ghosts and he talks to dead people?
a medium? That's different. Okay, I get it.
Oh, a spirit medium. Got it.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I don't think it means like mid, but
Mediums are pretty mid.
yeah, mid. But Biden's mid president.
See, I get confused because that's medium. Medium is mid in French. I get really. We don't have the different word for it. It gets really confusing for me.
John
sometimes.
Scott, would you like to make a bet with me right now, good sir? I would like to bet you $500 that you are wrong. And we can't shift goalposts on what victory is. If victory is the victory you've been talking about, which is 1991 borders of a Russian defeat. Okay? Leave it up in chat, and I'll remember you, John. Okay.
What about
DM me. You know where all my profiles are, so just DM me somewhere.
what about our friend Ukraine Maps, who's obsessed with the Russians shooting things down?
It's crazy.
Huh?
It's crazy how he doesn't ever talk about anything bad that happens to Ukraine, hardly ever.
Well, he does in DMs, but never posts about it, man. Like that's the thing. Like if
he can't, his base will go insane.
Exactly, but I was about to defend him, saying the times I've posted stuff that's not been great for Russia, it just doesn't do anything algorithmically for me. So it just isn't worth doing. If people cared, I would do it, but they don't care. So they only want sort of like anti-Western stuff. So that's what the algorithm has sort of determined.
Okay, John, if you're just gonna spam that, I'm gonna put you in timeout. But
just remove him. He's been spamming the whole time.
Yeah, no, I know. I've seen it, but I'm just giving him a verbal warning right now. You always give somebody a chance, right? Because I haven't been, you don't punish it right away. But if it happens again,
kick him.
I don't need to kick him. I can just put him in silence him. He can still listen if he wants.
You know what we should do, Scott? We should arrange for this again, and then I'll have to insist that Richard join us, so the four of us can chat, because I think Richard likes reasonable people, and I think it was funny when he went after Vaughn there for a minute. I was like, no, Vaughn is not a conservative. What are you talking about?
Oh, I know. He was like, Richard thinks I'm a libertarian.
Apparently, I'm a right-wing conservative pretending to be the right-wing conservative stereotype of a socialist, but I'm actually a libertarian. And I'm like, bro, you want to do your pseudo-intellectual stuff? Let's talk about Xu Muqiao and Stalin's later writings. Let's talk theory. Let's talk economics. Get back to me when you're at the level of theory reading that I was when I was 18. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, Richard's very smart, but yeah.
No, I know.
Think,
but sometimes, and on that regard, he was way out of his element. If your basis is you're going to pull a Jordan Peterson with his debate with Zizek, where he's going to skim the manifesto and think he knows what he's talking about, I will call him on it the same way I called Monolith out on it.
Yeah, Monolith is crazy, bro.
You should waste time with Monolith.
Dude, that dude is off the rails. I was listening to him
off
argue.
The rails.
What was he arguing about in that space, man?
He thinks everybody's a communist. and he hates communists or radical Christians.
He was,
Either
he
one,
was
he
saying
hates
that the Nazis killed less people than the Soviets.
I mean, to be fair, Zag, Kaiser and I actually are socialists. So, like,
Which I mean is technically true, but the Nazis were only in power for like 15 years.
Well, Kaiser's just from the GDR. I mean, he's a German socialist is kind of weak, isn't it? I mean, grand scheme of things.
I mean, no, he knows his theory well.
Yes, but still, if you're German, if you're German, you can only be one of two things. You can either be a brown shirt, or you can be part of the Green Party. That's like the only two places you can possibly be. So,
A faith worse than death.
yeah. You can either want to develop your own nuclear weapons or you really hate nuclear reactors. It's one of the two. There is no in between.
I like nuclear reactors only if they're part of a weapons program. Like, breeders are badass. I have to give mad respect to the DPRK on how they took those Soviet power plants and by themselves re-engineered them into plutonium breeders so they could have their power plants produce nuclear fuel for them.
Yeah.
Without anyone knowing. Brilliant. Like, we didn't know they had a nuclear program until we detected the seismic activity from their underground tests. That's how it's done. Are you paying attention, Iran?
I'll be right back. I can still hear you guys.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I mean, if Iran tests a nuke, people are just going to lose their shit. And there's going to be calls for preemptive strikes, as we both know.
Iran's really curious, though, because they act in ways that a non-nuclear state should not be acting when it comes to nuclear states. Like striking Pakistan without like even talking to them. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. They can reach Iran if they need to. Iran, I mean, the speculation is that because here's the thing people forget about Iran. It's a theocracy, right? So the Ayatollah's word is law. And he has a fatwa against the development of nuclear weapons. So the theory is that they're respecting that fatwa, that they have all the components, but they just haven't assembled it yet. And that is kind of scary if you're one of their rivals. It certainly explains in some small ways why, let's say, recently the U.S. focused on hitting their proxies in Syria and Iraq, but not wanting to escalate this into a region-wide conflict has much more explanatory power. It's just really, really curious, their behavior.
You would think if they developed a nuke that they'd pull back some of their proxy warfare, right? I mean,
no, I actually don't, because that would... The uncertainty of whether they have nukes or not is a huge deterrent factor for them, I think. So their proxies still allow them to do things abroad that are usually below the threshold for retaliation, but it allows them to still act like, hey, maybe we don't have nuclear weapons.
Well, I mean, if you just look at the North Korea model, everyone says that Iran's not a rational actor and that if they have nukes, the region will go to hell very quickly, or that they'll use them. I disagree. I mean, North Korea would probably never use weapons unless they felt that their state was going to collapse from invasion, right? So,
oh man, I have to address that, because I think Iran is entirely irrational on a foreign policy front.
It's kind of weird because they are made out to be these like very aggressive, very like terrorists and stuff like that. But then you actually like look at the way they've been interacting throughout this whole thing. They've been very calm. They've been like distancing themselves from their militias. They've been like trying to keep a regional war from happening. I think they really understand that they will be destroyed in that.
They know. Well, the thing is, they could have an immense repertoire of asymmetrical capability to respond with.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people who analyze this, especially military people, they fall into a trap of looking at it into a vacuum and not consider. I wrote a long piece about this on my Substack debut, in fact. A lot of things that analysts and military types, traps they fall into, stuff they don't always account for. Like, it's easy to look at raw American military capability and Iranian capability and be like, yeah, that's, it ends in 3 seconds. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where there are political constraints, economic constraints. How does it affect the region? What are your objectives? And once you factor all that in, the options are very limited, and it's not in America's or Iran's favor to actually fight each other.
Yeah.
But who I think is extremely irrational is I was in a space with like Iranian monarchists, not like Xerxes. I love Xerxes. He's completely level-headed and rational about it. But the hardliners, these people are unhinged. It's unfucking real. There is screaming about how they hate Arabs and they hate Muslims and they're really Zoroastrians and their culture is a Western culture and like they're gonna defend Israel to the hilt and like, bro, like who you're fooling?
Exactly. Who are you fooling? Many of them actually are like Iranian Jews too. So they say they're Zoroastrian so that they don't get the scrutiny.
And I'm not saying this
and
I want to clarify, I'm not saying this in any mean way. I'm indifferent to the regime in Iran. My concern is my alliance, let's say, is with the Iranian people. Our people inherited our relations from our precursor civilizations. That's how far back Armenian and Iranian relations go. Like we're ethnically almost identical. Like we're very closely related. They're literally from an ethnic perspective, our brothers. So like this isn't to like glorify the regime or poo-poo the monarchy. It's these people are insane. Yeah. And you're not fully. We have 3,000 years of written records of Persian history. You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah, it's that part of the world. I just don't even. The Caucasus region and basically everything north of Iran.
And Central Asia is confusing too, because you have Kazakhstan, you have the Uzbeks, the Kyrgyz, the various other stands, and they're sort of stuck between this Russia, China, and now an increasing American influence operation.
And there's like nothing there.
Tajikistan has a shitload, or Turkmenistan,
except like an earthquake sometimes happens.
Well, Turkmenistan has one of the most natural gas deposits that have not been tapped like on the planet, and
Zag, how long has that hole been burning?
In Turkmenistan?
Yeah, the mouth of hell has been burning for like what, half a century at least?
Oh yeah, there was like a deep mining operation, right? It's basically a fun site that they never covered with water. So imagine like Scott out west, like the Anaconda Steel Mine in Butte, Montana, which was like 1,000 foot deep, which like thousands of feet deep fire that they flooded basically, and all the sediments from the burning metals and everything contaminated the lake and blah blah blah. They haven't even flooded it in Turkmenistan. They're that backwards.
Yeah, so imagine that's a gas deposit that's been burning for half a century. They have a lot of gas in Turkmenistan.
Yeah, that's a fire they'll never be able to put out unless, like I said, there's no water to do it with over there. There's some problems with that.
Yes, sad times for it. Is it Uzbekistan? It's a landlocked country completely surrounded by other landlocked countries.
Yep.
Yeah, that's brutal. And then the ROC is basically totally depleted. So
it's 2 Cs now.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I will say to some of my communist friends. I'll point out some of the natural disasters from the likes of Mao and Joseph Stalin on the lands and sort of wonder how those things can be defended and how those people can be glorified in such a way when we all know they've had terrible faults that have had lasting consequences.
Absolutely. The secret is you don't defend the shit that's bad. But tank is going to tank.
Yeah, True. What about this question? Big shock from the war. For the war from the West, it's actually not the war itself, but that RU had the nerves to act on its own interest and disregard the rules-based order, which only the U.S. can. I said from the beginning of this that I thought the Western goal here was to build up this offensive into the Donbass, go in, end the civil war, call Russia's bluff. Oh man! All right, I put you in timeout, but now I'm going to ban you. All right, there you go.
It's too much. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just annoying.
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing that? That's like it's like bot activity level.
Totally.
Anyway, that they wanted to go in and solve the civil war, basically settle it so that Ukraine could join EU and NATO. Russia had been building up its military like this on the border basically every year. The story kept coming back around year after year. The Russians going to invade Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. And I think they finally just decided to call their bluff and try to push into the Donbass and end the civil war. And then once the Russians invaded, Plan B was sanctions, right? If the Russians come in, we'll sanction them, we'll destroy their economy. The Russian economy wasn't destroyed. There was no Plan C. Like there was nothing after that. That's the way I see it. It makes sense to me in that way.
Yeah, that's to me what the shocker to the West is that it's not that Russia is defying the rules-based order. That's not something new. It's that they won't back down. And there's nothing they can do to stop it at this point because the sanctions were expected to capsize the Russian economy within a week. Yeah. Newsflash, what many of us were saying, you can't actually cut off a major player in the export of every single commodity resource known to man. It's not going to happen. We here in Canada took a fucking gigantic cock slap because of that. Because our agriculture industry is fucked. Because guess where we get all our fertilizers from?
Russia.
Yeah, because we imposed tariffs on it. That's the way we did sanctions. Now our farmers pay through the nose for their fertilizers, which means we pay through the nose for food. But then the sanctions on the gas supply and the SWIFT exclusion. Well, guess what? Energy costs translate to fuel costs, translate to transport costs, translate to inflation on literally everything.
Yep. That's why I'm paying $50 more than I should be at the grocery store right now.
My grocery cost has gone up at least 30% in the last 2 years. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Now, I don't want to spurg here too much, but would you all think that sort of given Russia's weak position in the late 90s during the war against Serbia or the Republic of Yugoslavia, sort of Russia acquiesced to everything that the West had wanted then?
Russia didn't acquiesce in 1999, man. It begged. It got down on its knees and it begged because it knew that there was nothing they can do to dissuade the Americans. They knew and they begged. And they were told to go fuck themselves. And that was never forgotten because you do not do that to Serbia and expect the Russians to forgive.
Right. I mean, that's such a check against the West and the quote-unquote rules-based order because of the violations of international law that took place in the eyes of the Russians. And they tried to do things legally and at the UN level, and it just didn't work. And the United States basically made a mockery of the rules-based order in return for a legal check, and it was very disheartening to see this. And I feel like a lot of what's happening now is almost payback and revenge for that moment of weakness.
Like, you guys know where I stand on international law. It's impossible to have rule of law in an anarchic international system. But any hope of ever having it died when Kosovo happened, as far as I'm concerned. Because then the Americans tried. They're like, no, this doesn't set a precedent. And Putin told them straight up, no, bitch, that's not how law works. You set a precedent. This will come back to bite you in the ass. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I guess they thought they were invincible.
Sheer hubris.
Well,
That's what drove Europe to declare economic war, because they don't understand that the world doesn't think as highly of Europe as Europe thinks of Europe, or like they'll acquiesce for the privilege of dealing with Europe. No, it doesn't work that way.
this guy says give up vapes. It's not a vape.
Is that the vibrating one?
No, hold on. That's this one. So I went to my local dispensary, and I got this. I wanted to try this new cartridge that they had, and it has to be used with their pen. And when you do it, the pen vibrates. And it's very weird. I wasn't expecting it the first time, and it made me very uncomfortable. So, yeah, now I have this little vibrating.
Oh, I'm pleased we sparked international law discussion in chat. It's we've never reconciled that self-determination and territorial integrity are equally enshrined in international law, and you can't have both. And that's a problem. That's been a problem ever since it became glaringly obvious with Kosovo, and it's been a problem ever since, because the West won't accept, and it won't accept any self-determination that's not in its interest, and I can't blame them for it. I mean, if you can, you can. But this whole Abkhazia thing and South Ossetia and Karabakh is close to my heart. Abkhazia is special because y'all know, like, I absolutely adore Anna, and she's from Abkhazia. These people had a right. These people fought 2 fucking wars for independence. You're like, no, it doesn't count. Fuck you.
Only 2?
Abkhazia fought 2, Ossetia fought 2, Karabakh fought 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't like that entire region. I wish it was just all one people and they wouldn't be mad at each other all the time.
So basically,
because dude, that's like war crime central. That's like,
dude, the Soviet Union dissolved, and then we all and then it's like it's like the Balkans. Tito dies, like cowabunga. It is.
Yeah, no, dude, and I just don't have the. That's why I don't really do much of the Israeli war stuff right now, is because I just don't have the stomach for, like, when you're watching the Russia-Ukraine stuff, man, it is rare to see civilians get hurt. Like, in all the years that I've done it, some of the most traumatic things I think I've seen is, like, when bus stops and stuff like that get hit, like Kramatorsk one, the Christmas market, some different ones. But with those other wars, man, you see that stuff every day. Like, I was seeing kids every single day, and like the Hamas side of things really pushes that kind of imagery a lot too, to make the Israelis look really bad. And so it's just like, I don't feel like watching it.
Oh wow! Apparently, Bubbles is an Armenian from Baku.
Oh, cool.
Oh wow!
It's also cool. One of the things that I love about this is that I have met so many people from around the world. I've talked to so many different people from so many different backgrounds. It's so cool. Something I wouldn't normally get to do.
Yeah, the world is much smaller than it once was.
Yes, definitely. For the U.S., it is hubris, not for Europe. Vassalage, yeah. I don't see Europe having basically any say in what's happening at all. They have like their own pretend internal politics where they think that they're making a difference, but what leverage do they have at all? They barely have militaries. They don't have a population that's willing to fight. There's not a lot of nationalism in Europe that you can draw out on in case you needed it. You don't have a lot of resources. You don't have major economies.
You kind of do. You have.
Don't say that about the Germans. Kaiser will get very upset.
Well, they don't. They gave that all up through this thing. So the only leverage that they had, the reason why it got blown up, Nord Stream, was to take that leverage away from Germany. So Germany went along with this, and now they're literally nothing but vassals. They don't have any. There's no arguing from them. Israel has a larger arguing ability. They have more chips at the table than Europe does.
They have a better lobby in the United States. That's
exactly right. What does Europe have? Who literally Newland
thing
in
with Europe is
2014
they're
was saying,
too.
fuck the EU. That was
they're too caught up in their own national things. If the French and Germans got together, like when the European community first started, where the two of them together were the engine that drives Europe, they have or could have tremendous leverage, but they don't.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, they have a huge military industrial complex too. But the problem is Europe doesn't buy European equipment, so they don't build the economies of scale. They don't get the amortization of R&D, and they don't get to be competitive on the world stage. So nobody uses. So they create the reason to not use their own equipment. It's really sad because as I've said a bunch of times, I stand for the European army. I'd love to see Europe realize that as a potential to be a pole in and of itself. It doesn't need to be America's lapdog. But it's cheaper to let America fight your wars for you
exactly
and take orders.
Because it used to have an industrial capacity that was almost second to none, especially just around the time it became the euro, right? It was for years much stronger than the dollar because economically, if you took all those countries, they were very strong. And they've basically offshored all their best industry. You hear some of our European friends lament about the good old days when their massive corporations still operated in their home countries. It's very sad that the energy costs have basically uprooted so much great industry, and a lot of them are worried it will never come back.
Yep, it's a problem. We had that here in Canada. Once Albertan oil became a big thing, the manufacturing sectors in Ontario and Quebec died, and it took a decade to accept that the manufacturing sector is never coming back. And Europe's kind of screwed unless it's not to the point in Europe where it'll never come back. It's just that they don't have the political will to make it happen.
I was going to ask you guys, what do you think about everybody's always thinking about Ukraine, where do you see that going? What are your guys' predictions for where the U.S. is headed? Not maybe 2 election cycles from now. So 8, 10, 12 years down the road.
I don't see much changing in 2 election cycles, but
I don't mean progress. I mean in that time period, in having 2 different administrations come into office.
Debt crisis, first and foremost.
Yeah.
Y'all have a 13-digit deficit and a 14-digit debt. If Moody's goes through its warnings and downgrades a credit rating, it's going to be a really rough time. Your debt financing has overtaken a military budget. You have a $1.7 trillion deficit, $1 trillion on debt financing every budget cycle. You have to rein in this budget, but the thing is, what do you cut? How do you make up? How do you make up 1.7 trillion in revenues to balance a budget? It's that's going to suck. And what I find most concerning is how polarized your domestic politics are. It is
dude.
absurd.
Oh yeah.
It's gridlocked. They do it on purpose too. They use it against each other. It's a way to keep things from happening.
But I don't even mean between the political parties, 'cause that's an absolute clusterfuck. I mean normal people. It's
Well, like
the
an
left and the
example.
right act, and you guys don't even really have a real left. Like your Democrats, like from a Canadian perspective, from a European perspective, you have two conservative parties who hate each other because they think they're diametrically opposed to each other, but they're not. And Democrats and Republicans act like they're at war with each other. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Yeah, do you think we don't know that? We
I mean,
are.
you have to, because
It's
from
so
an outside
funny,
perspective.
dude. It's so funny when like I hear Republicans talk about, or like boomers talk about, like the left in the country is like far left. I'm like, oh my god, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, he can come over here.
It strikes me as absurd because they called Trudeau a communist, but dude, in any country that isn't the United States, Trudeau's a centrist.
Yeah.
The Liberals are our center party in Canada.
Well, I mean, also think about it in these terms. If you say the next 2 election cycles, what is that? 8 years.
Yeah.
So, what does that do? Like 2 to 3 election cycles. Certainly, this will hold up. The boomers will begin to phase out, and then you're going to have sort of a battle between who takes over: the Zoomers, the Millennials, or the Gen Xers. And
not the Gen Xers. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Gen X.
Right. I mean, they're going to be like, "Oh, we're so self-righteous." But yeah, I tend to agree. But it'll be like a Zoomer Millennial war.
Sorry, Mighty, but it's true.
Is that Mighty Thor?
Yeah, I have to, because every time I hear Gen X, I'm Mighty, I'm Gen X, I'm 54, Roman Catholic, San Francisco.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he's a proud Gen. I mean, on the cusp of boomer.
And we're also getting to the point where it's starting. It started, right? The boomers are slowly retiring. And the thing is, how do you pay those pensions?
Painfully slowly.
How do you pay those pensions? Because there aren't enough Gen Xers, Zoomers, and Millennials combined to foot that bill. The boomers are the boomers because they're much larger families than the rest of than those of us who came after are.
Yeah, boomers are the last sort of generation of American greatness, in the sense of grew up with low costs, grew up with plentiful lifestyles, grew up with opportunity, grew up with
a strong economy.
Well, a strong economy.
It's also sheer numbers, my dude.
Like
I don't.
Peace.
I heard a thing. A guy was talking about it. He's
marriage was easy.
If you weren't able to make money in the 90s, you were like an idiot. Like everybody was making.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody was growing there. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone was
guys,
growing.
it's also a pure numbers game. Like, I don't know about you guys. My dad was a boomer. He had 5 siblings, and it was considered a relatively small family by boomer. Well, late tail end boomer, but still considered a small family by boomer standards.
Yeah.
Millennials, you're lucky to have a sibling. Zoomers usually don't have siblings.
Right.
Gen Xers might have 1 or 2, but combine that all together, and we're a fraction the size of the boomers. How do you foot that bill?
Right. Like the standard boomer family was like 3 to 4 kids minimum almost.
Yeah, and wages haven't increased since the boomers, or since Gen X, I would more accurately.
Wages haven't increased. Cost of real estate has skyrocketed. Now with slightly increased inflation, it's going down eventually, but it's still painful.
Yeah.
So that's like the thing. Like where we're going, I don't know, but I certainly don't think it's going to be in as prosperous of a direction as the outgoing generation, which would be the boomers. The silents, like Joe Biden, are becoming what we remembered our grandparents to be before they hit their 90s and then began declining and hit like facilities or
Midlander, yes, boomers have savings,
Oh.
but they also have pensions. And the problem with pensions is that it's not some discrete fund that's just for pensions and it's there and nobody touches it. No. That money's been used elsewhere for decades. You have a $1.7 trillion deficit. The money's being used wherever it could be found, and that's a problem because it's the generations after that have to work to raise the funds to pay for all that, and it's not mathematically feasible. We have the same problem in almost all of the developed world. By the way, this isn't unique to the U.S. It's just much more pronounced in the U.S. because you're 330 million people.
Yeah. I think we lost Zag. So maybe this will be the last question to you because we've been going for a couple hours now. So let's see. Will the U.S. withdraw from Europe when the war is over and lost?
No.
No. Europe is a mandatory. It's a market that they have to keep. There's no way that they're going to pull out of Europe in that fashion. They control Europe, so that's like their colonies, and they're very wealthy colonies that they can keep trading with and operating, and that's their connection to the Eastern Hemisphere. So I think what you're going to see, though, is a withdrawal in the Middle East because the Middle East is not a priority for the United States anymore. I think that it's going to change its position there and focus more on the Pacific and Europe.
I can't comment on the Middle East because I have my obvious biases there.
Yeah.
I want to agree with you, but I can't. It's wishful thinking on my part,
Yeah. And no, I did not kick Zag. Somebody asked if I kicked Zag. No. I love Zag. Zag just dropped. I don't know what happened.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Normally, it's my connection craps out, but this time it's Zag.
Yeah. It's all good. We made it through 2 hours and 20 minutes. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit lit, so I think this is a good place to wrap it up before things get too far gone here. Thank you, everybody. Go follow Clown. He's on Twitter at Clown. Say it, Clown.
Von Klaunsevich.
No, your whole thing. I don't know what it is.
Oh, Von Klaunsevich War College.
Okay, on Twitter, he is very funny. And make sure you guys go follow Zag. He hosts great spaces. You can hear me in there as well. Please follow me on Telegram. Go ahead.
He is at Zagonel 85.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. And you guys can go follow me on Telegram and Twitter as well. Thank you guys so much. I like this. This was fun. I think we're gonna do this again. I might start doing sort of like.
Oh, I hope so. I had a blast. I had a blast last time too.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep doing these. These are fun. Thank you, everybody. You have a great night. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow if you're watching it.
Go Chiefs!
Yes, go Chiefs. Goodbye, everybody.